Hello, Ola.
Hello.
Nice to see you again. So, the reason we are meeting here is mainly the email I have received from you beginning of this year when you wrote that finally you are free from depression and you are very happy about it and you are ready to announce it to everyone that finally you're happy from it. So, I got also very happy. And because you've been not through one session, but few sessions and a process that lasted almost 1 year, so I think it's interesting to share if you would like to share your opinion, how it was for you and how different steps were taken and how you perceive different sessions and what they brought for you. So maybe, yes, I'm very happy you are free from depression. How do you feel about it?
Well, I feel amazing, especially that it was in my life for such a long time, in various stages and strengths. I would say the depression. I mean, goal was recently when I had my daughter, and the depression kind of got worse, and I had to go on medication. The whole process started a few months before we had the session when I started to do some research and I found your website. And yes, it could be a little bit frightening to make that first contact,
Oh, yes, I
to
think
send
it
the
is.
email.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
it
it
is.
is. Yes, because I found it, I think, in December, but it took me a couple of months before I actually sent an email, and I kind of found different reasons for it. Why should I postpone it for a little bit longer? But then I just knew it's something that I have to just sort out in my life, like permanently, because nobody wants to be on medication. It's not something that you want to use for a long time because
Mm,
you're just not yourself.
yeah.
So yes, so we had emotional sort of catch up call before our session when I was really in tears, and it was hard to speak about how I felt back then. Comparing to now, when we can just have a lovely conversation.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. We had a first meeting before the first session, and it was very difficult for you to talk about your
Yeah.
situation and explain what is really going on.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and then shortly after that, we had the actually not that shortly because that took a little bit of time because I kind of we did a little bit longer sort of time. So yes, it still was a little bit for me to get to that point. But
Yeah,
yes, the session was with telepath,
yeah.
and it was very emotional, very interesting because I found out things about myself that I kind of didn't realize why I'm doing certain things and I feel certain way about certain things in life. So it definitely has changed my life. I went through a quite deep cleaning process as well
Yeah,
for
this
a
is
very long time.
what I wanted to talk about because for every person the process is different. Many people
Hmm.
are euphoric after the session that they are relieved from their problems, but
Hmm.
for other people takes longer time to recover and to go through internal problems and cleansing. Also, because during the session with the telepath or medium, the work is so deep and it's usually very it's a large operation that is done in etheric part, in energetic part. And when it goes down to the physical body, your body, in your case, your body was having very acute cleansing symptoms, right?
Yes, yes, it was literally a few days after we had this session, when I had strong vomiting and diarrhea and that kind of symptoms for few, like a day and a half, and that happened to my daughter as well at the same time, uh, which was very interesting. But I think she was going through something as well at the same time as me, and it took a long time because after that, I still had some symptoms like colds and sinuses problems that were just ongoing, and lack of energy, just overly tired. My body was tired, so I couldn't actually get into sort of next stage when you work on your progress on getting better because I was just feeling unwell. And yes, I was doubting myself as well. I was thinking, why is this not working as quick as I was hoping to? Because you set yourself some kind of expectation, you kind of see what other people or hear from other people how they felt. But in my case, it was different. It took longer, but eventually I got there. And
Yeah, because I remember you contacted me something like 1.5 months after the session, telling that you are not feeling well, that
that's
the
right.
symptoms are still really not
Hmm.
pleasant. So we
Yeah.
decided to make checkup session to check
Hmm.
what happened between the end of the last session and the day when this checkup session was done, because we wanted to see whether there is any new situation appearing, maybe the same
Yes.
situation returned, or
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
your brain sabotaged the effect of the session
Yeah.
and what was going on. So this is that checkup session is a half of the session of a regular session. So that's why this is that half that I mentioned at the beginning, 3.5 sessions. So, and during this session, we discovered very interesting things. So, what do you remember about that session?
Yes, I remember it very well. The the telepath was describing it in a really nice and very picturesque way. It was very different to the first session. And she's seen some pictures of some kind of mosaics and had like ringing bells. And we got there. That I'm there, and the sort of a case or whatever I was in, it was starting to break, but it was just a very early process, and it was a very slow process for me because it's probably been so long since I was in my 20s, like before my 20s, and I felt depressed already. So it was a really long time.
So, you were in
um,
depression for how many years?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah. So I remember this moment exactly when I slept with my mom, and I was about 20. And I said, this is not really well. I'm not very well. This is not going anywhere. I was at university at that time, and I just I couldn't understand, because I don't think the knowledge about depression was that good at the time. But my mom listened to me, and she didn't know what to do, and we just kind of got on with it. But it never been actually looked into or cured properly. So I had to kind of find coping mechanisms, but it was
Mm.
there. So when the triggered moment like birth happened, it kicked in again. So it was a very long time. Then taking the medication just it was a short time, but it just made me think like I can't just live my life like this, because
Mm.
you think you still got a long life ahead of you, and you want to live your best.
Mm.
Um,
Exactly. Exactly. So, that checkup session, how did you feel after that?
So again, I felt that there was still a work in progress, but I felt relieved after the actual checkup session that we are on a good path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about 3 months after the first session, I started to feel better, and I thought, oh gosh, yes, we actually getting somewhere. I can actually start working on other things, like uh, reducing the amount of medication I take, and try to clear myself completely from it. So that was amazing. And about 4 months after the session, I just felt, oh my gosh, this is it. You just know, you see such a difference. And I look different, and I felt different with people, with myself, mainly with myself, because that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah, fantastic.
Um, yeah.
Well done. Well done. And then you decided for another session. And do you
Mhm.
remember what was the reason why you wanted to have another session?
So like I mentioned, I had a traumatic birth, and also I was thinking about maybe in the future having more children. Um, and I wanted to find out what was the reason why I
Mm-hmm.
felt the way I
Right.
felt with my daughter. So yes, we found out things very emotional for me as a mom to find out that my daughter is holding on to certain things as well. And I have to say, after the second session, we went through some cleansing as well, not as intense like the first time. We both had colds and etc., but it wasn't as bad. I think we both gone through it. To be honest, I think it kind of we are very connected. We have very nice connection. She could just be on me. She's very attached to me. So I'm not surprised that it's kind of affecting her as well. But yeah, we feel much better, and our relation improved between myself, my daughter, and my understanding of my worries that I had at the time. It's much better. Yes.
Great. So after that session, took how long time for you to digest all the information?
I think it was about 3 months this time.
3 months this time.
Mm-hmm,
A little bit
mm-hmm.
shorter.
A little bit shorter, and I was very eager to try to have a session on my own without
direct session.
telepath. Mm-hmm. So I think that was my sort of interest. I started to see it in a different way. I think after having 2 sessions, you just see life and how things are happening around you a little bit differently. So that was a big eyes opening for me. And the third session it had a completely different sort of target. And yes, we had the third session when I went into the relaxation state of my own. And this session felt much deeper. There was a lot of heavy things that we discussed. Again, that this is something that you don't plan. It just happens. And I think they very similar. Emotionally, I felt similar to the sessions with the telepath. So I felt the same when I had someone's help. So I mean telepath. I felt teary. I felt like I was in certain places that the person was describing. It wasn't that much difference, to be honest. But the personal session was much heavier. That I could feel everything sort of like sitting in me for very long time, like for thousands of years. So that was a big relief. There was a lot of tears, but I would highly recommend it. Either of this, because whatever it's possible and needed for the person, really.
Many people are asking or saying that they don't want a session with telepath because they cannot go through the experience by themselves. They don't participate in the session. How can you comment that?
I felt like I could very much be involved in a session because the telepaths are very calm when they do it. They just describe every detail, and I think if you really connected, also maybe when you connected with yourself, you just go through it equally, maybe not equally, but it's a very, very emotional time, and the sensations in the body were there even with a telepath. So I think a person just needs to try and see how they feel about it. I think you just need to see it yourself. You need to try it yourself to experience it. But I would highly recommend either of it. I don't know if there is, wrong or good answer for it. You just need to try.
Yeah, there is no good and bad answer. I just want to say from my experience that for mainly the session with the telepath is sometimes the only possible way of having sessions for people who are taking antidepressants or any sort of medication that is changing the perception. People that for any other reasons cannot go into relaxation And
Mm-hmm.
for that, I'm always using a test. And depending on the test, I see whether the person can have a session by her or his own or with a telepath. And it also depends
Yes.
on the experiences, different experiences in life. If there is anything paranormal in life, this is also indication for a session with the telepath, because the telepath is not emotional during the session, as you said. Is for the telepath, it's easy to go into this environment, to see and work
Yes.
in this environment. So I would say that both types of session are recommended for different problems and different circumstances in which the person is, apart from the situation that I would call the personal preference, because some people just don't want to go into personal session. They prefer to have it with the telepath. I would like to ask about your experience and your impressions regarding the session online, because some people prefer to have a session in person and they can't imagine to have a session online, or they can't imagine that it can work. So what is your impression about it?
Well, for me, it was better to have it within my own setting where I could feel relaxed. Because I think if you go to someone else's place, it's obviously very different. There are different smells. Uh, Everything's different, right? And within your own house, you just feel secure. Though the boundaries are different because we don't are next to each other. We see each other. But I think I felt a little bit more relaxed to go through the sessions. And there's obviously a huge amount of emotions that are happening afterwards. So I think it was great that I was able to just be within
Mm.
my own house, and just try to go through it and relax as much as possible. And so I would say, obviously I haven't had the experience of one session in person, but from my experience, I think I would say it's better to have it in your own house. And I don't know if there is difference in experience in the session. I feel for me, I felt relaxed to do it. So I think if I would be with another person again, I might just feel really a little bit awkward because you don't know that person as
Yeah, there
well.
are always two
So
strangers in the same
yeah,
room, locked in the same room.
exactly, exactly. So, and you come with like lots of things on your mind. Obviously, if it's a first question, there's so many questions that you have in your mind. Like, will I be able to do it? What's going to happen? How I'm going to feel? Do I have to restrict myself somehow? Can I relax? What if I just go into tears and I cry a lot? So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's true.
mm,
Is there anything you would like to say to somebody who is thinking whether to have or not to have a session?
just go for it in terms of the first contact, because even if it even takes a little bit longer to have the session, when you make that first contact, when you're looking at someone else's session, obviously you're already interested in it and you feel, oh, perhaps this is for me, perhaps there is something I could help myself with and just improve your life. So I know the first step might be difficult, but even if it takes a little bit longer, if it's a little bit later, it doesn't need to be immediately. When you're ready, just try, because it would make a difference in life,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's true.
Mm.
Recently, there was somebody I talked to after the session, and that person shared with me the information that at the beginning she wanted to have a session, but at the beginning she was not able to write an email to me. Her friend was writing emails to me on her behalf. So
That's it.
all the correspondence before the session was done via friend. So
Mm,
she was not able. Something was just blocking her from
blocking.
writing.
Hmm.
So
Yes,
okay,
yes.
great, Ola. I really appreciate your courage and your will to share your impressions of your healing path from being in depression to officially stating that you are not in depression anymore.